We're going to start our Human Resources meeting. Today's date is December 7th, 2023. The time is 10 a.m. I want to call this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Commissioner Matari, and Commissioner Duncan is on the telephone.
Yes.
Do we have any changes to the agenda? No changes. With that said, we'll move right into public comment. Do we have anyone on the phone? Jonathan? No? All right. Well, let's move into business. Item number 1, Annual Service Award Distribution Request with AMP. And we have Keith Hutchison.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keith Hutchison for the record again. This is the Annual Service Award Distribution Request for $1,651. It's for 12 employees that work for AMP. It is in fiscal year 24's budget.
That's the total is $1,600.
$51, yes, sir.
Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Duncan?
No questions. I move that we approve the annual service award distribution for adult misdemeanor probation.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's approved. Next item is bonus payments request, bonus payments and adjustment for 911 and its matrix. And we have Andy Deek.
Actually, Lieutenant Ryan Higgins is going to present for
Okay.
the 911 Center. As the board is aware, and everybody in this room is aware, the 911 Center has been dealing with staffing issues for as long as anybody can remember. We've taken several strides to help with that, and it doesn't seem to be very effective. To give you some numbers, we currently have 5 supervisors and 10 ECOs at the center. We have one that is retiring next Tuesday, so we'll be down to 9 ECOs. We had another one just recently retire, and that leaves us with 16 positions open. So we're well below 50% staffing. We need to bring in applicants. We need to bring in especially laterals. And so I'm requesting that we adjust the pay for the dispatchers and supervisors to, and I don't know if you guys got a copy of this pay
Haven't seen it.
rate. No.
Give it to Bruce.
Oh, yeah. So basically, what we looked at is we looked at, there are surrounding agencies, Post Falls, ISP, and Spokane. Spokane has 2 dispatching centers, Spokane City and Spokane Regional Emergency Communications Center. And we looked at their wages and what they pay their people, and I came up with a matrix that is comparable to Spokane and Spokane Regional Emergency Communications Center. The starting pay would be that of, we call it's SREC, is Spokane Regional Emergency Communications Center, is $57,075. That would be the starting pay, and everything would go up at 4% annually for that. That's an entry level. Level 2, level 3, level 4, or advanced always also increases, and then supervisors would increase as well because we can't be paying supervisors less than ECOs.
What rate do supervisors start at?
Currently,
Well, I mean, your proposed.
proposed supervisors will start at $83,678
Okay.
and top out at $105,872, and that's, we only have one person that's even close to that range right now. The impact to the budget, Brandy and I worked on some numbers, and she came up with some numbers. The impact to the budget based on this, based on our current number of employees, is $169,793. That would be if we started it in January through the rest of the fiscal year. Salary savings as of today is $141,000 in the 911 center, and I don't know where that'll be projected to as we move down the road. So we have to do something. We have to bring applicants in. We really have to focus on laterals. We've had some laterals come in and apply, but they back out because of the pay. They realize the pay is not going to be able to handle what they either are making or what they need to do to live here.
So you think this will solve the problem?
It'll help. I think we have to do something other than what we're doing now because we're not getting we're not making any ground at what we're currently doing now. The other thing we looked at too is sign-on bonuses for both laterals and entry levels, and those can be broken down based on what HR and administration at the sheriff's office deems appropriate. A dollar amount that was thrown out to me is $15,000 sign-on bonus for laterals. I think that could attract some laterals, especially from the Spokane region where they may not have to move, but also from other areas in the country. The beauty about bringing laterals in is the training typically is a little shorter. We can get them on the floor faster. They could be certified in some of the protocols that we currently use, and we should be able to hopefully get them trained and on the floor faster, which definitely help with the staffing crisis, the staffing issues. The entry levels will have to go through the same training time, which is anywhere from 8 months to a year, depending on how we break things out. So.
Questions?
No, I didn't
Yeah,
realize,
I have some.
I didn't realize there was that much training for a new.
It's quite a bit.
Leslie?
Go ahead, Leslie.
Yes. How many are in backgrounds right now?
3, but I've heard one is going to be DQ'd next week.
Okay, so you have 2 essentially in backgrounds, and then how many are in training right now?
1, but he's been put on the floor to do fire med training just to give some relief due to the recent resignation of another dispatcher. So he's not completed with training,
Okay.
but we're putting him on the floor.
Okay, and then when these laterals apply, do they know what the pay is when they apply?
I believe so. I mean, it's on the website. I'm sure that they have that information. Like anything, they hope that they can make it, and when they work the numbers, they typically can't. So.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have no backup documentation for this. I am fine today to go ahead with approving all of the bonuses and, to work with HR and figure out those amounts and stuff. But unfortunately, I have no numbers in front of me, and so that's where I'm at right now.
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
Just as far as the work environment goes, I mean, obviously, as more and more people resign, those shifts have to be picked up by those who remain.
Correct.
And so we actually risk burning out faster
Correct.
because of that.
Correct.
Do you ever pull people from patrol?
We have, when they're on extended light duty, we have pulled them off and they've worked a radio channel, the sheriff's office radio channel, but they aren't trained to answer phones. They can't handle the 911 calls because that takes training, especially if there's medical calls. They have to go through some protocols that they don't have training on.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to bring somebody over for a couple weeks when they're on light duty. They have to be on extended light duty for it to make any true impact or benefit to them.
Okay.
May I expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
So we have assigned people from other areas of the office to 911. We have put out emails and requests for other departments. If you have people that are light duty or need a change of environment, we've asked them if they could offer up bodies. If I get 6 more, I'll have a half a dozen. I haven't had any luck with any of the other agencies that we dispatch for. Ryan, have we had anybody respond to any of
No.
those? Yeah, so the sheriff's office is the only office that takes personnel from other units of assignment and assigns them to 911.
Yeah. Now, right now, we have 25 positions and 9 expected to be filled after the retirement occurs.
We'll have nine ECO positions that are filled.
And does that include the person in training?
Yes.
Okay. Where would you need to be where you could feel comfortable that the pressure wouldn't be so much on the remaining people that we risk this kind of burnout? I mean, if you got to 15, would that be a good number, or 17?
Yeah, I think if we had 17, and that's kind of my goal this year is to get 17 people in the program. It's about all we can train in a year, anyways. Unless they're laterals. If they're laterals, we might be able to get them through sooner. But entry level people, we don't have the trainers because we don't have the staff to be trainers. We only have 4 trainers right now, and so. Yeah, if I had 17 bodies, ECO positions, not counting supervisors, but if I had 17 ECO positions, we could definitely reduce the impact of overtime for everybody. We could service the community a lot better because we'd have a little bit more staff in the room. We can definitely service our first responder partners because we can focus a little bit more on the radio and be a little bit more diligent with the radio. Right now, there's something that answering radio traffic is reduced a little bit because they're on the phone, answering the phone, and they're running 2 channels or whatever the circumstance may be.
And what about your laterals? Are they local, or do they typically come from out of the area?
So the last lateral that we had applied, she works for
Ada County Sheriff.
the Ada County Sheriff. She ended up going to Spokane City, and I don't know what her status is at Spokane City. And then we had another lateral that started going through backgrounds, and then she withdrew, and she actually lives in like Newport and works for Shrek.
Okay.
And she ended up, I think, not even working for Shrek anymore. I think she dropped out of because of the commute even to Shrek is even longer than us. So.
And so we have people who, I guess if you put the position side by side between Spokane and here, obviously Spokane's going to pay a lot more.
They currently do pay a lot more.
And how much annually is the
So
difference?
Spokane Shrek pay starts out at $57,000. They top out at $77,000. Spokane City, who only does police dispatching, understand we do all dispatching, only does police dispatching. Starts off at their level 1, which is their entry level, at $45,000, but they top out at $98,000.
And where do we start?
Currently, we start at $27 an hour, roughly.
So about 55,000.
I don't even think it's that much.
And Robert Norris, Post Falls
What is
is
that? Do
currently
you have
full. Post Falls is currently full with their dispatch, but keep in mind, they only do 1 discipline. So the stress factor, the workload of the 3 disciplines versus the 1 discipline.
How many dispatchers do they have?
9, I think.
9. And they pay 57. You said when you start?
Post Falls starts at $45,000 a year.
45. Okay. And what do we start at?
We start our dispatchers in Echo 1 at $25.86 an hour, which is 6% less than what the SREC is paying at this time.
SR.
The
Sorry,
Spokane Regional
The acronyms.
Emergency Communications Group.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
And just a little bit of background, we did pull so we know what's going on here too as well. The number of apps that Sheriff's Office received in terms of our echoes, and in a 6-month period, they received about 120 apps, and they've hired 1, and 3 are in background, as Ryan had mentioned, and the rest have pretty much failed their background.
And so it's largely failing the background?
And withdrawals.
We're just not getting a high enough quality applicant,
Correct.
in
Yeah.
essence.
Yeah.
But we've had some where they go through the whole process, get hired, and then they're there 2 weeks.
Yeah, so our most recent trainee that we had, she came on. She used to work for a medical facility in Spokane, and she ended up leaving to go back to a similar job with them, making $80,000 a year. But she doesn't, she works. It'll be Monday through Friday job, or 4 days a week. 1 day as a work at home, and she was going through the program fine. She was actually moving into the next phase. We could have put her on the floor today if she was still with us, and she ended up going back to the old job to make more money.
What are
And
these people paid during training?
They're paid the same, whatever their entry level is.
So-
They just don't get the overtime. They only work 40 hours a week.
and then they get the overtime and they complain about it.
I'll give you an example of the overtime, the impact of overtime. So one of our, the most recent retiree we have, KP is her name. She's been with the agency for as long as I've been. She started in 1996. I've been here since 1996, so 27 years. In a 10-year period, she calculated her overtime, and she worked equivalent to 12 years in a 10-year period on overtime. So that's how much overtime they're working, and this is not a new problem. The staffing level at the center is not a new problem. It's always been an issue, and we've just been playing catch-up, and we need to get ahead of the game, and that's what this proposal is, to get us ahead of that game.
Are there any other differences you can think of from a work condition perspective, benefits perspective, that these other, dispatch departments would offer?
I don't think they offer anything else than we offer, other than they have more people, and so they don't have the burnout that we have.
Yeah.
I know that Spokane City, or maybe Shrek, is going through some staffing issues themselves, but that is my understanding. That's an internal issue. They're having issues with their law enforcement and first responder partners, and so there's some stuff there. That's the rumor I've been hearing. So there are some people working overtime at those agencies as well, but as far as benefit package, I think our benefit package is on par with all the other agencies that I've talked to. I've gone to several conferences, and this 911 staffing issue is not a new thing, even just locally. It is across the nation. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's doing basically what we're trying to do is increase pay so we can get people out of their homes, and where they were sitting at home making more than what they're making now at the dispatch center, we can maybe pay them more to get them out of their homes and into our center to work.
Did you have any thoughts, Sylvia?
Just something we had explored with Andy Deek a few months ago was to look at contracting with like a traveling service for emergency communication officers. I think that as well would hopefully, if we could do something with them, help them get their positions staffed. And in the meantime, they can recruit and train, but I don't know where that status is.
Yeah, so I have a meeting
It's been
with
a few
them on
months.
Monday, that company, and they're supposed to be putting some proposals together for a cost. My request was 2 dispatchers for 6 months, at least help. My thought is if they're in the seat and they're in the building, then my full-time guys don't have to be in the building. That was my theory behind it. I have no idea what the cost is going to be. I don't even know if it's cost effective, but we'll wait till the proposal comes in. But I have a meeting on Monday with them.
Yeah, and these people would be in the office.
Yeah, so they would work 40 hours a week. They would the company rents a home for them for this time. Obviously we probably would subsidize that based on the contract, but they would supply a person or persons for a 6-month period that are trained in our protocols, trained on our computer system. We would give them our SOPs, and they wouldn't do the job they wouldn't do the job at the level that we probably would do, but they would at least do it well enough to where I wouldn't have to have one of my ECOs working. They would take that role.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it's $100 an hour or more.
Or more.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
I think it'll be interesting to see what it says, but I think it's going to be very expensive.
Yeah, I think you have a couple of issues here. The first one is you've got to stop you got to reduce the attrition rate.
Yeah.
And I would be open to the idea of some sort of a reasonable retention bonus with an assurance that people are going to stick around for a couple more years. The second thing is, I think if you could get to 17 agents, I would be open to a hiring bonus until you hit that bogey, so to speak, because you got to fill these positions. I mean, the burnout is just creating a worse situation for us. And then as far as the pay goes, I mean, if our pay is pretty competitive, and that's what I'm kind of hearing.
Well, it's the length of the Robert Norris, length of the matrix is what's hurting us.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about it is, do we plan on reaching out to some of the laterals that left us and saying, hey, here's the situation? But then as soon as we start doing that, then Spokane raises theirs again, you know,
Yeah.
and they have more flexibility to bring in laterals at their year for year, whereas we have to fight county policy of we can only bring them in at X percentage per year. So we'd like some consideration on that too. If we have a 5-year lateral, we'd like to bring them in at 5 years. That's another consideration.
So the matrix is also kind of out of whack.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like similar to the patrol deputies that we had
Correct.
before.
Yeah, so currently the ECO matrix is a 9-year matrix, supervisors is 5. That's what is broken as it currently sits. I would reduce our matrix to 7 for ECOs, keep the supervisors at 5. We can even reduce it to 5 if you want, but that would be a decision. But I'm willing to go to 7, condense the matrix to 7 years. That's what this proposal is too, is to reduce the matrix from a 9-year to a 7-year, increase pay, and that's about it.
And that should be what we have for our estimate here, our projection.
Yes, the cost that Brandy sent out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're more than offsetting this with salary savings because we have so many empty positions, I take it.
Yeah, correct. Right now, I think we would be probably offsetting, and Brandy could maybe provide a little bit more information, but we would potentially offset at least this first initial year with salary savings. Now, next year is a different story because obviously it carries into next year's budget. But.
So for FY '24, the increase that I calculated, I only included 7 open positions calculated for the increase for '24, because that's the most that they said they would be able to fill and train this year.
Mm-hmm.
So for 2024, the increase would be $168,000, and then for 2025, when you factor in all the open positions, it would be $265,000. So they have $141,000 in salary savings right now, so we probably would need to use a little bit from the mid-year wage pool that you guys have in general fund, probably. So if the increase is 168, we need about 20-something thousand to come from that mid-year wage pool to fund the FY '24 increase.
But when do you start the 155,000 load here on the budget? When are you basically saying these people have been hired?
I did it just starting in January because this was very last minute. It was like yesterday afternoon that I got the request to even calculate this. So I just did January through September as the 2024
But there's
timeframe.
the chances of you hiring 8 people.
In January is
exactly.
0. I think it'll be
So-
probably February before we even hire the 2 that are in backgrounds, if they even make it through.
Right, so mine is on the high end.
Okay, so we probably are well below the salary savings. If we were to hire, let's just say 1 person a month starting in February, we probably would be pretty safely below
Yep,
that.
probably covered by their salary savings.
Yeah, and
So.
this doesn't include any retention or hire bonus.
They actually are, they got approval to do retention bonuses for the entirety of 2024, FY '24. So I've already taken that out of their salary savings.
Okay.
So even after the retention bonuses, they have $141,000 in salary savings.
But no hiring bonuses in here?
The hiring bonuses come out of the sheriff's admin budget. So for 2024, they got approval for $100,000 in bonuses. None of it has been spent so far. So any sign-on bonuses for 911 would come from that $100,000 that's already budgeted. That covers sign-on for all sheriff departments.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So that
Yes.
the sign-on doesn't affect the 911 budget.
Okay. Look, I think the thing for the commissioners that we can do is we can adjust the bonuses up until you hit a bogey of staffing level. I mean, 17 is to me a reasonable number to start with. If you get to 15, for example, and everything's running great, we could revisit it.
Right.
As far as the pay goes, it sounds like if we're losing people, we have to take that into consideration, or at least condense the matrix. If we're losing people that way. So I would be okay with up to the 17 and revisiting this thing. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have the salary savings, and I'm not so sure you're ever going to fill these 25 positions within the next 24 months.
I don't think. I'm not gonna say, I don't think so. I mean, there is always a possibility, who knows, but.
Well, you're gonna have
But I
some
think the
turnover.
likelihood is probably pretty thin that we would fill all the positions in the center in the next 2 years. I just don't think it would be feasible.
Commissioner Brooks, what do you think?
Well, I'd go from the top down and ask Bob, Sheriff Norris, does this sound like something that you want to go down? Because I want to do what you think we should do. You've been in law enforcement
Yeah, it's
a few years longer than I have.
Robert Norris. I think we are in a totally different dynamic in 2023, 2024 than we were just a couple of years ago. When we have companies that no longer have a brick and mortar and are able to have employees work from home. So when we have employees to say, hey, you know what, I'm making $80,000, $90,000 a year at home and I have more flexibility, I think any in-seat employment, we're going to have challenges. And I think that we're going to have that discussion because law enforcement is an in-seat employment.
Is what?
You have to have in-seat. You have to be in-seat. You have to have, I got to have jail.
Can't work from home.
Can't work from home. You have to have them in-seat. So I think that's a discussion that we're going to have. And I think that we have to stop the hemorrhaging. And I think we need to contact all of the laterals that left us and said, hey, here's where we can be. Have
Now,
us take a look.
I have a question for you, and this is something that, just being relatively new to this position, I've learned how it kind of works here. But, in the private sector, you pay based upon the supply and demand for a particular job function. And I'd like to make sure that if we were to do something for 911, we're not going to be dealing with a different group that says, well, what about us? Because we do A, B, or C. And, the way I look at that is that these are positions that need to be filled. We have to provide this service. And if people want to earn whatever is being offered here, then that's what they should do.
Correct.
And not compare their function and responsibility with a different job function and responsibility. Is that going to be something that we're not going to have to deal with if we?
Well, I think that's going to go back to what I said earlier.
I mean, it's basically the market that's driving it. It's
Yeah.
not what the people are actually doing. If
Right.
people are
Well-
lined up for one job and we can't fill people for a different job, the pay is going to be commensurate with the desirability of trying to get those positions filled.
Correct, and I think in-seat or not work-from-home positions are going to play a big factor in those things. So it's a dynamic that we have to include. Plus, our cost of living here. We have to incorporate that somewhere in the formula also. We used to be cheaper than the Spokane area. We're not. We're more expensive.
That's a little longer cycle for us to have to address that. Commissioner Duncan, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, the bonuses can be given out in monthly increments, and then that way that it coincides with their employment. And then as far as hiring, we've had many, many people come before the board to say, this person has this many years of experience, I want them at this step. So I'm not sure why we wouldn't do that for dispatchers. And then I would be definitely interested in, that contract position. And, we talk about being cost prohibitive. Well, what does that look like if we're going to keep hemorrhaging people? So it's something that we really need to consider.
Well, the issue with respect to bringing people before the board for step overrides, I'm not so sure that ever is, that's an issue in this situation. And the main reason I say that is, how many applicants did we get last year, Sylvia?
125.
Yeah, and we're down to 3 people here. And how many have said, if you give me more money?
In a 6-month period.
In a 6-month period. And the issue is backgrounds, largely?
Yeah, so they're failing backgrounds or they're withdrawing prior to completion of backgrounds.
Yeah. I'm not even sure.
I'm talking about the laterals.
I'm sorry.
The laterals. It was mentioned that laterals aren't allowed to be brought on commensurate with their years of service. And we have done that.
We have
So
up to a step 7. is what we've allowed, what was allowed by the board, and that's what the sheriff's office did, is bring them up to a step 7. Based on their experience, they could do a step 7 without coming to the board.
So what's happening with that? Have we still lost people as a result of even that?
I mean, they're not, well, we've offered it to them and they said that's still not enough. We've had 2 from Shrek apply, and when we offered that, we bring them in at a level that they was commensurate with what they're making now, or with the level of service that what they're doing now. It still wasn't enough at the time to convince them to commute,
Yeah.
come over here. So.
Sylvia, you're in HR, right? It's not just pay. There's other components to this. Now, the way this problem looks to me is that this is a money problem, that it's a kind of problem we're going to have to throw money at. But, there's other components to this. So I'm going to ask you, what else can we be doing to get more qualified people that we can actually get through this system and provide relief? Because we're on the precipice of a disaster in that department.
Oh.
Once you lose a certain number of people and you get down to just a small fraction, you've lost it all. I mean, the amount of money it's going to take to rebuild that department is going to be significantly more than what we're talking about now.
Yeah, I think a lot of effort is being made trying to retain them, but it's still bleeding. What would be nice is if the state of Idaho would adjust their background criteria. I mean, I think it's killing all agencies, and it's a national issue, not just
Yeah.
Kootenai County. People are looking at positions and they're picking a different career than that in law enforcement like we used to.
Yeah. Well, so what are you telling me, or us, that this is a money problem?
I don't know if it's a money problem.
Well, what would you do then if you were in our shoes to fix this problem?
Definitely look at that contract. I think you've got to show the existing people that you're making every effort to get them some help, and our applications aren't resulting in that. So I think that service, I'm sure it's going to be exorbitant, but it's not we want it as a temporary adjustment so that our existing staff get some relief. And then we're working on creatively, we're working on a video. The sheriff's office asked us to do a video, anything we can to touch the right people to come and apply for our positions that'll meet the background qualifications.
Well,
We don't have the magic
here's the thing.
solution here.
Here's the thing. If we hire an outside firm at $100 an hour, that's going to be $200,000 a year for one person. We're talking about making an adjustment on a matrix that's going to be $150,000 if we fill people on January 1. So
may
if
need
you
to
or
be a
us,
blend.
But one person's 200,000.
Yeah.
So 5 people is going to be $1 million. So
think
it's a
you
business decision here, Sylvia.
It is.
What
it
would you
is.
do?
I think our people are worth that, and to make some adjustment to the salary, and try and get them some temporary relief somehow. You've got to do a combo.
Well, I agree with that there needs to be some immediate relief. And I do think we need to adjust the pay so that people stay and it's attractive enough for others to want to lateral back here, or the people we've lost. I think the retention bonuses should just be a straight dollar amount that are given for sticking around for 2 years. You get half up front and the other half when you stick around for 2 years.
The sign-on bonuses or the retention bonus?
Well, either.
Okay.
I mean, we need to fill these positions, right? And so our alternative, because look, 20 years ago, a call center agent with a firm was $29 an hour. And that's for an unskilled person to read a script. Okay, so if we're paying for their rent, I cannot imagine it being less than $100 an hour.
I'm projecting the same. I think it's.
I'm thinking probably more like 150, because there's got to be probably a 20% margin on top of that for the firm that we're dealing with. Zach, did you have something to say?
Yeah, Zach Newkirk for the record. One of the components I think is worth considering too is the rate of training. And we've spoken, Captain Deacon, HR, about the training process, and perhaps there's ways to evaluate if there's some acceleration that could happen there. I don't know, it's not my field, but we have had to shut down recruitments because we had too many people coming on at once. And so we can only take on, I think the number was 4 individuals at a time. And so then we shut down the recruitment for a number of months until we were ready to be able to take more. So there is a rate of being able to take people on and component to this, because by the time those 4 people are potentially done with training, we may have already lost a couple more people due to this issue of attrition. So I think that would be worth exploring. And Sheriff Norris mentioned in-seat positions versus work-from-home positions. I do know of other places that have begun exploring remote work as a possibility for call centers. Kitsap County, where I worked at beforehand, they did integrate this process, so many of their individuals do work from home. So that may be something also worth exploring in terms of the environmental factors that lead to attrition.
Yeah, and I think work from home is an option when you have someone who's established themselves in an office and you know how they're going to work. I think when you hire someone brand new and you say you get to work from home, you don't know what's going to be on in the background that'll be a distraction.
Correct.
So I think that that's more of a longer term item. But your point about training is spot on, because you can only train so many people, and with so few staff that we have right now, the ability to grow the department is capped by the number of people who can train, because the trainees can't train more trainees until they have enough time under their belt.
Correct, and with the idea of having contract workers to alleviate current employees so that we can offer more training, may accelerate the rate in which we're able to bring in employees. So while it's perhaps not the most cost-effective from a filling that seat standpoint, if it opens up the possibility of additional training, it may in the long run be net beneficial to accelerate that rate of bringing on new employees.
How long does it take to train a lateral, roughly?
Roughly, we could probably get a lateral, depends on what their certifications are, because we have some protocols that you have to be, it's Pro QA is what it is, and those are protocols for fire and medical dispatching. If they have those under their belt, and we don't have to train that necessarily, we can get a lateral through, I'm gonna say, and this is probably pushing a little bit, 4 months. Because they still have a couple months, or 6 to 8 weeks of call taking that they have to do, because our call taking system is different than maybe how they did call taking. Or what we're finding is a lot of these dispatchers we're getting never did call taking. They were just a dispatcher. Mm-hmm. They didn't handle calls coming in. They just got the call on their screen and then they dispatched the fire agency or whatever agency they work for. So we have to train them to the call taking levels.
Yeah.
And then if they're already trained on fire med, then maybe they can breeze through that a little faster. And same thing with the law side of things.
Yeah. And then the only other question I have here, and perhaps HR can provide some insight into it. There's expense, obviously, for generating those 100+ applications, I trust. And there's expense to vet these and to do background checks and so forth. And we kind of did a similar exercise with the patrol division, where we demonstrated that it was about $105,000 to recruit and train a patrol deputy to the point of signing off on their field training officer. And that we lost more than half of those patrol deputies, 33 out of 62, who were hired between 2010 and 2017. And so we, in essence, spent $3.5 million to train and recruit people that other agencies largely got the benefit of. And so I wonder, how much are we spending right now just to try to recruit and fill these positions?
Well, the standard benchmark level of turnover per employee is about 1.5 times their salary. So we have to do some math for you, and we can bring that forward on your dispatch center. But you can anticipate 1.5 times their salary, and that includes, you know, the training time, the productivity loss, because you've got to have a trainer train that person. So it's expensive. Turnover is not cheap.
Yeah.
Commissioner, if I may?
Yes.
Under Sheriff Brett Nelson, for the record. Much like the jail, we've spoken about how we went away from a custody tech position to just deputies to fill that, because we need deputies all the time. Lieutenant Higgins spoke to the fact that in a perfect world, we would have call takers and we'd have dispatchers. But we, just in my short duration in being in command, we've gone away from the call taking position just to have dispatchers so they can handle all of the facilities within the dispatch center. So again, we continue to consolidate and work within the means, but I will tell you, through the continued efforts through Lieutenant Higgins, Captain Deke, and HR, and our own HR people at the office, we continue to think outside the box. The reality is, at some point, given what they have given us too, there's a point where we have to just raise the bar. Unfortunately, with the given results that we've had, I don't know of another alternative other than trying this method to see what we get being in this profession at this time within our society. Again, I can send a news story that was sent out last week from Northern California where Merced, I believe it's Merced County, they're down half their deputies in the jail, half their dispatchers. The reality is too, is they're having to increase their wages to be competitive to bring people from the outside agencies or from home to work here.
Okay. And on FY '25, our budget is still was 7 short out of the 25. Your calculations here with the increase to the budget. Sorry, Brandy, I know you already spoke.
So for FY '25, that increase is a reflection of a wage increase for every single position in the 911 department. Is that what you're
For
asking?
all 25 positions?
Yes, every single position in the
But we
department.
know that we probably won't fill all of those.
Yes, and the open positions I'm calculating at the lowest grade at a step 4, that's our standard. So if they aren't filled, that is the grade and step those positions will get budgeted at. So that's the best I can do with the information I have. So that's my projection, and that's probably high because if you hire someone, if they're new, you're not gonna hire them right away to step 4, right?
Correct.
So if there's someone's new, they're gonna hire them at a step 1, but we always budget open positions high.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yep.
And that's budgeting them at 50%,
Correct,
maintaining
and they
that
will
same
still be at 50%
philosophy.
next year if they're not filled.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that this is going to be cheaper to do this with the employees than to hire outside. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't hire, but what I'm suggesting is that if we have to rely on more outside help, if we think an extra couple $100,000 for next fiscal year is going to be a problem, I can assure you we'll be spending a lot more with outside agents and paying for their rent and everything else. Because that's on top of their salary, I trust.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, would we get any traction if some of the people that were trained, that left, that are still in the community, to offer them part-time at, because they have their other 40-hour-week job.
Yeah.
If we were to offer at an overtime rate of $65 an hour, do you think?
Yeah, we've done that before. So we had a dispatcher that retired, and then we brought her back under a contract rate, and she worked 3 days a week to help out. And then she, with an end date, and she gave an end date, and then she officially retired. So that is definitely an option that we can reach out to past employees that have left for other jobs or other positions and offer them a couple days a week or whatever they're willing to do.
What
under
number do you
contract.
think we would need to be? Because obviously, I know a few in my head that are already working their 40 hours somewhere
Right, yeah.
else. But what number do you think we would need to be?
Dollar amount to bring them in at?
Right.
What did we bring Carol in at, 65? I think it was $65 an hour.
65?
Got a couple
Because they don't get benefits, they don't get anything.
Yeah, I understand.
got a couple internal that are working in other departments that use the dispatch that will do overtime as well, which we've used.
Yeah, I would look at that, and I think that if you're going to have any kind of bonuses, you should tie them to a 1 year and a 24-month payout. So at least you can get some assurance that people will stick around. While I appreciate Commissioner Duncan's comment about month to month, that doesn't assure that they'll stick around for that time. And the problem is that when we lose somebody, that's one less person who can actually train a new person that comes on board.
Correct.
And we need to keep these people here for a little bit and stabilize this department.
Yeah.
So I'm of the opinion of approving this and letting the sheriff's office, at their discretion, determine their retention and hiring bonuses. They have that money already set aside. But that's what my recommendation would be as far as offering that to people.
Okay.
And, condensing the matrix to 7 years versus the 9. And then, of course, your bonuses, I would stop them once you hit a point of, reduced vacancy.
When I talk to people, the matrix is probably the biggest problem they have with their pay and benefits is not the benefits, and it's not the per dollar pay, but it's this matrix. And don't we have people on a 5-year matrix?
Yeah, we do. Well, supervisors are on a 5-year matrix right now.
Okay, are we having problems securing supervisors
Um,
or retaining supervisors?
No, the last supervisor that we had, well, actually, yeah, we had two supervisors that left for, this was a couple years ago, they left for a job at Coeur d'Alene PD Records, and working Monday through Friday, normal shift. The most recent one was internal transfer.
I'm very concerned because when this department, there's a lot of things in the county that, when things don't get done the right way or enough of them, nobody dies.
Yeah.
This is not one of those departments.
We can't go without a 911 center, the county
Right,
can't.
yeah, right.
And we can't go without staff. And so if we want to provide a service to the public, then we need to fix the problem
Well,
that's there.
that's why I would recommend that we go to a 5-year matrix and just bite the bullet and do it.
I'm open to whatever. That I changed it to from a 9 to a 7 just to.
Right.
You know, I would say let's start with a 7 and revisit it. You know, give it 3 to 6 months or something, come back and let's talk
See
about
where we're
that.
at.
Given the numbers that were provided for the budget increase for this and the fact that we have significant salary savings, I have no doubt in my mind that we will not exceed our salary savings given the degree of vacancy. What I'm more concerned about is that you need to hire people. And if we have to hire this outside firm, all these numbers will get blown up.
Correct.
That's just a fact. So, and then I would, again, your hire and.
I will say if
retention.
this gets approved, then we're going to do a pretty robust recruiting effort. There's some avenues I can take through the dispatching portals nationwide. We'll reach out to, I have some dispatchers that are friends with current dispatchers at Spokane and Spokane City, Spokane County and Spokane City. I'll have them reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we can offer you now, save you the commute to Fairchild Air Force Base. This is where their dispatch center is now, I believe. And maybe we can latch onto some people that used to work here many years ago and have moved over there for pay and benefits. Is what they moved for.
Well, I hope that would be the least
Yes.
that we would start with. Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah, I have a question going back to background, since it seems like that's one of the crux of our issue here. Are we using post standards, or do we have more stringent standards than bottom line post?
Is it post standards? Post standards, ma'am.
Okay, so no matter what county they would go to, they would fail the background.
Potentially, I don't know what the background process is for, let's say, Shoshone County or Bonner County or Latah County. I don't know how they do their backgrounds, but we follow the post standards.
And if I may add on that, Commissioner, both the post standards through IDAPA rules, I can speak to some relatively recent applicants we've had who failed out of our background process and directly asked them, why didn't this come up in your background before, whether they're a lateral or an entry? And their simple response was, we were not asked those questions by our previous agency. So we can't, again, as Ryan said, we can't speak to what they do, but what we do, we follow post and IDAPA rules.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, action is required. I support doing what we can to fix things. Just because I have not seen the information in front of me, I'll probably just abstain from the vote. But I do support moving forward. I just don't have the paperwork in front of me.
Motion?
No,
No motion?
no motion. I think we need more discussion. I mean, we need more.
So you don't want to go with a 7-year matrix
Do
and
not.
get
I
this
do
thing
not.
going?
I want to go with 5 years and spray a little starting fluid into the carburetor. I mean, that's what we need to do. It may seem like something we wouldn't normally do, but I think if we find ourselves overflowed with applicants and what these people have to go through in terms of the background. I know about backgrounds. I know about really hard backgrounds. I was in the military where the backgrounds were atrocious. How many people do you lose in background, Sheriff?
We use quite a bit. We lose quite a bit.
How
Yeah,
many?
I mean,
What percent?
Most of them have to do with
Over the last
narcotics
6
use.
months, how many?
What?
Well, out of,
Most of it has to do with narcotics use.
Yeah,
Can answer.
yeah.
Go ahead.
But I mean, how,
Sylvie has the exact numbers.
yeah, out of
so out of
100
the
people,
125 applicants, you hired one and the 3 were in background. So over what, 90%, 90-some percent, you're losing in backgrounds.
And I believe the point being, Sylvia spoke to it. Until the rules change for us for background purposes, we're mandated by those strict rules that are given to us. There's black and white and there's not much but shade of gray, if you will, in between those. So it's not our process, it's the process given to us by which we have to fulfill.
And the 7-year matrix or the 5-year matrix, the starting, step 1 is the same, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, as far as hiring people and having you be able to get the ball going, it's irrelevant whether it's a 7 or a 5.
Correct. It's just the top out would be faster.
doesn't this attract people
But
more?
yeah, that's
It
what
might attract
that's what
more
we're
people,
thinking.
yeah.
We're,
That-
we're
that's
thinking
what
we
I-
get the attention of other dispatchers at other centers. Say, oh, well, they're going.
That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
And I looked and I couldn't find what the pay matrix, if they call it that, in Spokane is. It just has a minimum and a maximum, and that's all that I could find.
We couldn't find
couldn't
it
find it
either.
either,
And
yeah.
we've made some calls and hadn't gotten a response back since
But
we
if,
had this meeting.
if you found somebody and they said, look, you know, if you could get me at the 7, I'll stay. You could bring that before the board, right? I mean, that's not,
Correct.
that's not a condition that says no one's gonna,
Yeah, if let's say we reach out to somebody at Shrek and they have 7 years of service over there, then I would not be opposed at all at bringing them in, whatever level they are, level 2, level 3, dispatcher, whatever Washington is, and years of service, and bringing them in and requesting they be paid at a 7-year, whatever level it is.
I mean, I think we can revisit the 5-year, but I think if we do nothing, we're just prolonging this. And we're preventing the sheriff's office from starting to fix this problem.
Well, I don't think we can slow step this and ramp it up gradually. I think something drastic needs to be done now.
This is a pretty drastic move. I mean, from going from current rates to matching Spokane and exceeding Spokane at some areas is pretty dramatic, in my opinion. And it's a step in the right direction. Now, whether we reduce it to a 5-year matrix, I'm okay with that too. That's just doing some math. I mean, it's.
One of the
it's figuring
things
it out.
what I've often heard Sheriff Norris say, and he's got the right idea, but he says, I don't necessarily need to be the highest in the market. I disagree with that. I think we do need to be the highest in the market, especially in this particular area.
Yeah.
Because this is really where law enforcement, the rubber meets the road. People die if this isn't done properly. And I think we need to be the highest and attract the best and demand the best.
Well, I'm looking at,
I have another question.
sure.
Under Sheriff, would you be willing to work with some changes to legislation that we could bring forward in this session coming up?
Yes, most definitely. There's a few things that myself and the sheriff have been asked to hopefully travel down to Boise to discuss, to have an open discussion with our legislators, but until they take action, we're, again, restricted and mandated by what they've provided us.
Right, but it sounds like if this is not just countywide, but statewide and nationwide, then it may garner some attention.
Very much so.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion to approve the bonus payments request and the adjustment to the 911 matrix at the 7-year model.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks?
No.
Chair Pro Tem Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye.
Could I just clarify the pay period that this new matrix goes into effect for the record? So the standard is it goes into effect the next full pay period after the one we're in right now, correct, Sylvia?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not the pay period we're currently in, but the next one upcoming, it will go into effect.
It would be pay period 1,
Okay. All right.
which starts December 17th. So you need to give us, it gives us a little bit of time to get the numbers into the system and all that process.
Okay. Motion approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item approved. On to item number 3, discussion of task order for Justice Center continuing work, and Commissioner Duncan.
I would suggest we handle 3 and 4 together because they're really kind of going to be the same document that we're approving. It just takes the form of task orders and exhibits A and B, or 1 and 2, I think. So yeah, this is just the Turner Townsend Heery contract. And I probably would suggest we bring it back to Tuesday's business meeting to ratify, just because it needs to follow the proper channels. But I wanted to make sure that Mr. Mendez could get the confidence that he has a signed contract so he could go full steam ahead.
I'm fine with it. You know, I guess we just have to follow the proper protocol here. So we just need them to sign it, and then we'll bring it before the business meeting.
Correct, but we can approve it right now, and then we won't sign it until we get a signed copy from Mr. Mendez.
That's fine. Do you want to make the motion?
Sure, I move that we approve the, hang on here, I want to get the right language. Project Management Services Agreement with Turner Townsend Heery, LLC, along with the work order 1 and exhibits 1 and 2.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks?
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye.
Okay, items 3 and 4 pass. On to item 5, countywide open positions, human resources. Sylvia.
Yes, on a monthly basis, I'm giving you a status on the open positions countywide, and this was as of November 30th, just because of the timing to get you information in your packets. We had 101, a little over 101 open positions, which is a reduction from last year's 116 positions at the same time, so a reduction of 12.75%. 67 of these positions are difficult to fill, as you've heard from the sheriff's office. This would include attorneys as well. And 49 of the open positions are funded at 50%. So I did look at how many open positions we have today, and we're at 104. And November 30th, we were at 101. But maybe we'll get some progress made here.
Hopefully. Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Can I add something to this?
Yeah.
Yes, I have some things. So right now, we still have the facilities director open position, and we're using some of the salary savings for the contract that we just approved. So my question is, do we want to just put this on hold for a few months and revisit it? And then that way we're not continually accepting applications. We do have an interview, I think, scheduled next week from somebody that Bill and I thought showed promise. And so I just want to have that discussion because I think it's starting to look really unprofessional that we're accepting these applications. They're not getting noticed that, you know, where we're at in the process. And so I want to not leave this hanging open.
Well, you know, sometimes for difficult positions to fill or ones that just have a certain specialization that you're looking for, I've seen it. It's rather common to leave them open because when you open and close with a window, It's only those people that saw it at that time. And because we're not in a hurry necessarily, I agree with you that we don't need to fill this position today. I think it definitely should be done before the Justice Center is completed because we need that. But I don't have a problem with keeping them open, but I realize there's some internal protocol here. So I don't know if that is something that we can just notify people that this could be a while, or. But I think.
Well, I think I think that we need to do just a better job of quick response. Like if 2 out of the 3 of us are not wanting to give an applicant a interview, that person's just notified right away.
I think that's very fair.
In this day and age, in our recruiting efforts, timeliness is of the essence if you want to get the right candidate, and notification to them whether they're going to interview or not is critical. But we would probably want some direction if the applicant you're going to interview Thursday doesn't work. You're saying you still want it opened or not?
I'm willing to leave it open as long as we are being timely and concise.
Yeah, I think we should leave it open because you never know if that right person comes along. I mean, we went down this. We did find someone who would have been a good fit, and that person, like another person like that person, may actually apply. Next month. I mean, January is a big month where people start looking for jobs and things like that. So I think we should leave it open, but I agree with you, Commissioner Duncan, that we should be a little more timely in responding to people.
Okay, and then also, I think all 3 of us have a little bit different criteria on who we want to interview, so probably just communicating that with Sarah so she can better vet the applicants and then bring forward the ones that would meet 2 out of the 3 criteria.
Sure.
And HR is willing to do that for you. And actually, if you wanted us to follow up, because we talked about phone calls, we just need to make sure the 3 of you were screening for what that would be and what that criteria is.
Okay.
That's fine. Anything else on item 5?
No.
Okay.
Not for me.
Moving on to 6, Vacation Donation Policy 316, Proposed Revision, Human Resources, Sylvia or Cecilia?
We're both going to tag team this. I'm just going to start it out. HR is working on all county policies to present updates to you, but we found with the vacation donation program that we needed to bring it forward ahead of time. We found some little glitches in the policy of interpretation and how it might be interpreted differently. So we wanted to bring that forward to the board. I'll have Cecilia give you a quick overview of what those changes are. It has been reviewed by legal and approved by legal.
Cecilia Sweet, Senior HR Generalist. And so some of the updated language that we added to the policy is it must be a FMLA qualifying medical event. Our last policy, it was a little more a medical event or emergency, so we gave some clarity on that. We also added wording for HR oversight of the vacation donation. We saw like a loophole where someone took vacation before applying for FMLA. And so the vacation donation policy only covers up to 12 weeks in a 12-month period for a qualifying event with their own accruals and the aid of the donated vacation hours. So if someone needs 12 weeks of FMLA, that's 480 hours. If they have 400 hours, the most that they can get from the vacation donation program would be 80 hours. So, and then we also, really added clarity on the purpose of the program, basically saying that it's that combination where our prior policy didn't state that.
Any questions?
I don't have any.
Commissioner Duncan?
Nope,
Just curious,
it's fine to me.
I just have a quick question. Does this affect liability at all for the county as far as cash or anything like that?
So,
In,
So the wording changes to the policy don't affect the county's liability, but in general, the way the vacation donation program works is that when we write off, it's transferring liability from one employee to another, would be a fair way to say it at the moment.
Okay.
So you could have one employee, donate their hours to another employee, so we're transferring liability.
So it's net neutral, basically.
Right now, yes.
Yeah.
and we have about 15 individuals that have the qualifying event that have utilized it. And if there are no hours in the bank, they don't get the hours.
Understand. Okay. A motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the vacation donation policy 316 proposed revisions through human resource.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye.
Okay, item approved. Next up is number 7, overlap pay request, temporary overlap of senior HR generalist position with Human Resources. Sylvia.
As you know, Dorothy is going to be leaving us. Very unfortunate for us, big loss. And we will be moving another staff member into her position. Well, what we'd like to do is have the individual who's coming in to fill that slot receive her upgraded pay beginning December 11th because she's going to be doing a dual role. She's going to be training her replacement and is training with Dorothy as well. It's budget neutral. Our new person will be starting on Monday. We were fortunate to get some applications with some qualified candidates after all. This type of practice has been done in the past with other departments, and we are requesting this be allowed for our position.
Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Duncan?
No questions. I move that we approve the overlap for the senior HR generalist.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye.
Item 7 is approved. Next up is item 8, a step increase request for the airport. This is basically a request for the airport director. I just kind of want to remind folks of how we kind of got to where we are. When we had our resignation from the previous director, we had a previous airport employee step up and take over the position in an interim way. And they volunteered to do it at a significantly reduced rate compared to what the airport director was getting paid. And as time went by, it turned out that the airport director that we had been looking for had been working for us all along. And that we ended up promoting that person to become airport director, but we did not take into account at that time the pay for that position. And when you look at how we would normally interview for this, we would actually evaluate the criteria on a resume, ask these kinds of questions, and that was something that we kind of bypassed. I think given what I have seen and the fact that the gentleman had run an airport before coming to the Coeur d'Alene airport, he took a position that was below what he was doing before, that he has more than enough skill set and perhaps even more than people in the past, that I would recommend that he get paid the same as the previous airport director that we had. And from feedback from the airport, I have not found one person who would object to this person being compensated consistently with the previous airport director. They've been very pleased with what has gone on at the airport. And so I'm here asking the board to consider to do that for our current brand-new airport director.
So I have questions that would probably best be handled in executive session, and I know that we have another executive session there too. So if it pleases the board, I move that we enter into executive session at this time.
What authority?
Would be-
742061B.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. And if you just would call me on my cell phone, that would be great.
Okay. Back, the time is 11:40 a.m. Do I have a motion to exit executive session?
I move that we exit executive session.
Second.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. As for item 8, I move that we change the airport director's pay to a step 5 with a bonus retroactive to his permanent employment date.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Couldn't hear.
Sorry.
All right, and then for item 9, staff is proceeding as discussed.
Yep. Okay. Next up is public comment. Do we have anyone on the phone? No public comment right now. The time is 11:41. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.